Thank you so much. As you can see, my name is Stacey Johnson. I am an associate medical director in clinical development at Vertex, which means I work in the development of new drugs to treat kidney disease. Vertex is based in Boston, but before I moved to Boston, I worked as a nephrologist or a kidney specialist for about 10 years. Taking care of people with kidney disease, people on dialysis and things like that. I'm really excited to be here and I'm grateful to the Black Health Matters team for the invitation to talk to you today about the impact of kidney disease in the Black community and just bring you up to date on some of the information about what we now know about the impact of our genes on kidney disease. So today I'm going to talk to you about kidney disease, what it is, how the kidneys function. We'll talk a little bit about the burden of kidney disease, the burden it presents both on individuals and in society. We'll also talk about the role of the APOL1 gene, and I'll explain what that is in kidney disease, as well as tell you about a disease or condition that we call APOL1 mediated kidney disease, or AMKD for short. Talk about genetic testing, and then also share with you some potential educational sources and things that might help you also understand. Your kidneys are essentially two bean-shaped organs that sit below the rib cage. The kidneys play a vital role in the maintenance and keeping balance of electrolytes, keeping balance of fluid in the body, and they function pretty much 24/7. 365 days a year, okay? And most of this is automatic. And we'll talk about a little bit later about what happens when they stop functioning and what kind of symptoms you might see. But under normal conditions, under healthy conditions, blood comes into the kidney and comes into the kidneys, it gets filtered and fluid is taken out and the end result is urine. The kidney, the main functional unit of the kidney is something called the nephron. And the nephron contains this little sophisticated kind of sieve or filter called the glomerulus. So blood comes in, gets filtered, and then along all these tubules, that urine gets fine-tuned and some things are added, some things are reabsorbed. And so the end result then is urine. So what happens when your kidneys are not functioning well, okay? In a healthy kidney, so as you can see here, the blood comes in, gets filtered, excess fluid and waste is represented by these green dots, gets sent out into the urine. And then the healthy things, the things that the body wants to keep, like albumin, which is a type of protein, it's the main type of protein that circulates in your blood, albumin stays in. But when the kidney is damaged, it can't do that filtration very well and it can't do its job efficiently. So two things happen. One is that, unfortunately, some of the excess fluid and waste don't get filtered out. So instead of leaving in the urine, they stay in the body and can cause problems. But then also when that glomerulus, that sieve structure that I showed you before, that little bowl-shaped structure, that glomerulus, when that has been damaged, instead of being able to form a nice barrier to keep that albumin inside the body, that albumin gets sent out into the urine. So the way that we can diagnose kidney disease, or when your kidneys are not working well, is by checking the urine, because then people are said you have protein in your urine, and that this is what we test for. We take the urine, we send it to the lab, check for protein. And that can be a sign that the kidneys are not working well, because you should have, under normal circumstances, protein should be minimal or zero, essentially, okay? And then if the kidneys are not working well, the other thing I told you about was excess fluid and buildup of waste. One of the waste products, a lot of them are not harmful, but they can be measured. So when you get your blood measured at the lab and you go to your doctor's office, that can be measured. And when we see that, depending on the level, we can use that information to tell you how well your kidneys are working, to calculate something called the estimated glomerular filtration rate, or that eGFR. Those of you who've had blood work done at the doctor's office, I'm sure you've seen that on there. That eGFR or that creatinine measurement, that is your doctor testing your kidney function. It turns out that a lot of these changes, when the kidney damage is happening, a lot of it happens actually silent. And so people don't realize that they have kidney disease often until they start to have symptoms. But the problem is that symptoms start very late. So sometimes you don't get diagnosed until your kidney disease is really quite advanced. The CDC estimates that about 1 in 7 adults in the United States has kidney disease, but because the disease is largely silent, almost 9 out of 10 of these people are undiagnosed. That's a lot of people walking around with kidney damage. Kidney disease is costly. It has a personal cost, and it also has a financial cost, both to the country, but also to you as an individual. As you can see here, about $124 billion was spent by Medicare annually to care for people with kidney disease. A lot of that is done at the later stages for people on dialysis or with kidney transplant. But then you also have that 87 billion that covers people who have earlier stages or less severe types of kidney disease. And this figure does not even take into account the cost to the people who are living with kidney disease, the cost of time to go to the doctor, maybe lost wages because they have to be at a dialysis unit, so not able to go to work, the cost of medications, the time spent in the hospital because of complications from kidney disease, and the time and the loss of life, because kidney disease, by the time you get to end stage kidney disease, it does shorten lifespan. What we have known for many, many years, and what this graph shows, is that in the United States, if you look at the number of people who have developed kidney failure in a given year from year 2000 all the way to 2019, you can see that the Black community has disproportionately shouldered the burden of chronic kidney disease in the United States. African Americans are 13% of the population and 35% of the people on dialysis or with kidney failure. Okay, so this is a serious issue for our community. There are a lot of things that could go into developing kidney disease, right? So sometimes it's what other health conditions you may have. Diabetes being one of the leading causes of kidney disease, high blood pressure, maybe autoimmune disease like lupus, heart disease, obesity. But what we're also learning is that our genes can also play a role. So in 2010, scientists were able to show that changes or variations in a gene called apolipoprotein L1, or ApoL1 for short, was associated with higher chance, more severe kidney disease and the development of end-stage kidney disease in African Americans. Your genes are the building blocks of your life, right? And so the genes are encoded in DNA, and they have the instructions to tell your body, basically they make you who you are, right? So those genes have instructions on them to produce what we call proteins, and those are the sort of the factors that help make an individual. Genes control how we look, but they also control how our bodies work. And what we found is that what scientists found was that this gene, this ApoL1 gene, had some changes in it, or two specific changes in it that actually increase the risk of developing end-stage kidney disease. So when they'll have the original gene is called G0, and as you'll see later, the variant gene is called G1 or G2. These genes came about thousands of years ago in Africa, more specifically what we call sub-Saharan Africa, so West Africa area and Central Africa. They actually came about to protect people against infection by a parasite called trypanosome that causes African sleeping sickness. So as you can see here in this graph, this figure, if you have the original G0, you are more susceptible to sleeping sickness, but you also don't have any increased risk of kidney disease. People who have one of the original and one of the variants, either G0, G1, or G0, G2, actually are protected against the parasite causing sleeping sickness, and they don't have kidney disease. Now, if you happen to have both two copies of that variant gene, either G1, G1, or G2, G2, or G1, G2, you are protected against the parasite infection, but unfortunately, you also have an increased risk of developing kidney disease. So how does this look? So here we are. So you think about thousands of years ago, Mother Nature, trying to protect people from disease, made these changes to the gene that give you protection against sleeping sickness. Unfortunately, some of those changes also had a negative consequence of increasing susceptibility to kidney disease. Just having the genes doesn't mean you will get kidney disease. And we'll talk a little bit later that there's usually some sort of second insult or second hit that leads to kidney disease, but it does increase that susceptibility. So this, as I said, this came out in sub-Saharan Africa. Well, as we moved from sub-Saharan Africa to the rest of the world, the genes came with us. So yes, it's there in Nigeria, Ghana, Democratic Republic of Congo, but it's also in Brazil. We can find people with the genes in the Caribbean, and of course in the US and in Europe. And by our estimates, about 13 out of every 100 African Americans has these genes. That doesn't mean 13 out of every 100 African Americans is going to develop kidney disease, but it means that there is that risk. They have that risk factor. When I said that just because you have the disease, so what are the, so you have that risk factor. And I mentioned earlier that you have to have some kind of trigger. A lot of times the trigger is an infection, or it can be something like an inflammation. So maybe you have an autoimmune disease like lupus, which is a kind of an inflammatory condition. If you have these two risk variants, you develop a more aggressive type of what we call kidney disease from lupus, or also known as lupus nephritis, right? Maybe you have these two variants, you're minding your own business, and you get COVID-19. And then you get kidney disease, and you want to know, well, how did I get kidney disease? Probably because, again, that COVID, that infection was that second hit that then triggered this kidney disease. So knowing your risk is important because it might actually impact what you do and how you decide to interact with your healthcare providers. So this is just showing you what I said here, So again, having two risk alleles increases the chances that if you have that second hit, like high blood pressure, like COVID, like lupus, you may develop chronic kidney disease. The symptoms of chronic kidney disease can actually be kind of subtle, right? Fatigue. I mean, who here hasn't felt tired? So fatigue. As the kidneys get worse and as they get weaker, they are not able to clean fluid. They're not able to clear fluid. They're not able to clean the blood. The fluid builds up in the tissues. So it builds up in the legs. You might notice that you're retaining fluid, so your weight might go up. Your kidney, as it turns out, some of those toxins I mentioned, they don't cause pain, but when they accumulate to high enough levels, they cause people to feel tired. They may cause you to lose your appetite. Those are usually at the very ends of as the kidney disease is getting worse. Some people may notice they have really foamy urine from all that protein in their urine. All of these can be signs of kidney function. And so if you don't know what your kidney function is, it's good to know. How do we make that diagnosis of kidney disease associated with APOL1 or APOL1 mediated kidney disease? We make the diagnosis, as I told you, through blood tests and urine tests to look at kidney function. And then a genetic test to see whether or not you have, so somebody with protein in their urine and decreased kidney function might have APOL1 kidney disease, but they might not. And the only way to know is to get a genetic test. So what is genetic testing? Essentially, genetic testing is where your doctor will take a sample of your blood or saliva, send it to the lab, and we get it, and they're looking for the gene. Why would you want to get a genetic test? Well, as I mentioned, one, it could help you understand exactly what the cause of your kidney disease might be. People who know whether or not they have the APOL1 risk variants, maybe they might say, oh, you know what, I'm going to be more proactive, maybe be more aggressive with controlling their blood pressure, maybe actually talk to their doctor about what other risks they can counteract to decrease the chance that their kidneys will fail. And now, because of the great interest in this disease, knowing your genotype may also help you decide if you qualify for things like clinical trials. This just shows you what's involved in a genetic test. Again, you get your saliva or your blood, you send it to the lab. The results get reported back to your healthcare provider, and your healthcare provider talks to you about what the results mean and what the impact might be and what to do going forward. It's a personal choice of whether you want to get a genetic test. It's not typically, it might not be offered as part of a routine physical. But if you have kidney disease, or you know someone who has kidney disease, someone in your family, maybe because it's a genetic disease, it can go through families. So there might be people who have several relatives with kidney disease. It might be a way, I said, to understand what's going on and help explain why many generations of the family develop kidney disease. And this is just showing you the types of genetic testing that can be available and the companies that provide them. So it's becoming much more common now. And so more than likely, doctors can order one of these tests to have it checked. So you decide to get the genetic test and you get a result. Now you know, now you want to know, what do I do with that information? So as I told you, I would show you some educational resources. So Vertex has partnered with NBA Hall of Famer Alonzo Mourning to work with him on his Power Forward campaign. Mr. Mourning had kidney disease and had a kidney transplant. He had APOL1 mediated kidney disease and had a kidney transplant many years ago. And now he's a very staunch advocate for kidney health and educating people about kidney disease. And on that website, www.powerforwardtogether.com, he gives some educational resources, discussion guide, things that you could talk about with your doctor. NephCure, which is an organization that works with patients with kidney disease, also has some educational resources. The American Kidney Fund has also resources that you can go. They give their videos, they explain the disease, and they explain kidney disease in general, but they also explain APOL1 mediated kidney disease, or AMKD. But again, information is power. So if you decide to get the genetic test and you get your results, you may talk to your doctor. Your doctor may refer you to a genetic counselor. But if you want to look up information on your own, these are some of the resources. So to summarize, kidney disease is a costly condition that impacts both the individual and the society. For African Americans, people of African ancestry, this includes Afro-Latinos as well, people from the Caribbean, the APOL1 risk variants increase the chances of developing kidney disease if you get exposed to a secondary hit or trigger like inflammation or infection. And having those variants can lead to a more aggressive type of kidney disease once the disease is triggered. Genetic testing is one tool that can be used to help you understand your risk and also give you some knowledge to help you speak to your family about the risk of kidney disease. Thank you.